Hi, I'm Shannon Borg, and this is Kolbe Elements, How to Crank Up Your Creative Engine. If you have taken the Kolbe personality test already, you may know that it is based on 4 separate sections. I'm going to take those sections of the Kolbe A Index and connect them to the 4 elemental forces: air, water, fire, and earth. By now, you probably have your Kolbe numbers. If you haven't done it yet, you can go to kolbe.com, KOLBE.com, and take your test. My numbers are 6482. So this gives you an idea of how the test looks once you've gotten your results. If you haven't taken the test, once you take it, you will receive a link to see your results, and Kathy Kolbe, the creator of the test, will kind of walk you through what it all means. But once you do that, come back to this video where I'll talk a little bit more about how this relates to artists, to the creative process, and to the elements. But a quick recap. Various personality tests test different parts of your personality. An IQ test tests your cognitive side of your mind, your intellect, your skills, reason, knowledge, and experience. An affective personality test, like the Myers-Briggs, that will measure your emotions and your personality, your motivations, your preferences, desires, and values. The Kolbe A Index is a conative personality test. It measures your drive, your action, your actual mental energy and innate force that you use when you are doing something, when you are in action. Here's a breakout of how this test measures how you act when you're working hard on something. Every part on the scale is important, and there's no right or wrong. It just kind of shows you where you are. Okay, so it goes from 1 to 10, 10 being taking very bold, specific action, and 1 is the counteraction to that. It's the realm of stabilization, or where you simplify your actions or adapt to what is around you. And in the middle is where you try to explain, maintain, or restore what may seem too extreme in the other 2 ends. I'd like to propose that this is like the elements. On one end, water can be a flood, a waterfall of action, or it can be a still pool on the other end. And in the middle, it can be a babbling brook, or it can be the water coming out of your tap. Each element has different modes or extremes. Fire can be bright and dangerous. It can be exciting, and it can be rejuvenating in the case of a forest fire, or it can be a stable source of heat that just warms you continually. It can be used for many different purposes. In ancient Greek philosophy, the elements were used by Plato and other philosophers to talk about human nature. This is the swords in the tarot deck, and here this metaphor works as well. Air represents your mind, how you deal with information. Do you love to dive into statistics about whatever you're studying? Do you need every little detail, or are you just kind of a bottom liner? You just need enough information to move forward. Water represents systems, how things flow. Water is the cups in the tarot deck. It's about relationships and connections from one thing to another. Do you just go with the flow and adapt to what is around you? Or do you need a specific system in order to work? Or do you maintain what has already been created? For instance, if you've ever worked in a restaurant, some people show up and say, "Show me exactly how you want the table set and the napkins folded." Other people might just go with whatever is there and do it differently every time. The systematizer wants to be told exactly what to do. And if they find that there's no system, they will create a new and better system to do it more efficiently. The adapter works with what they have, and the maintainer will work within the system, keeping the things the way they are, but not changing things too much. Quick start is fire, how you deal with risk. Fire is the creative spark. It's the wands in the tarot deck. Innovators dive in and start projects with boldness. They love to feel the excitement of risk. It drives them to new forms and new ideas. Stabilizers counteract. They want to make sure everything is safe before they proceed. Modifiers are somewhere in the middle. They will take what they get and mitigate risk to make it safer, or modify something that's too safe to make it more fun. Most artists are innovators. They dive in with boldness. Earth has to do with the tangibles, the real world. This is the pentacles in the tarot deck. An envisioner can see things before they make them. So sometimes it's difficult to move that vision into the real tangible world. This is an architect or a designer who needs builders to help them bring something into the world. The builder needs to have all the best quality materials before they proceed. Fine craftsmanship versus more of a process of using what is at hand. And the restorer takes what is available and makes it work. The 4 elements connected to the Kolbe Index is really interesting in terms of your creative process. This self-knowledge can be helpful when you approach your creative work and as you think about how you naturally act. So this is how the business world mostly works. First, you get an idea and you research it. Then you find a system or a plan. You plan it out to figure out how the best way to proceed. And then you make an attempt, but with very low risk because you've already done the market research, already done the data research, and then you build a product and bring it into the market. This is not how most artists work. We are often misunderstood. Most artists work like this. There may be an idea or the glint of an idea, but often artists take that small idea and dive right into taking action. This is not a bad thing. Risk is part of their process. Then that action creates something in the tangible world. Then we take a step back to see how it works. And then artists create a system to put it out into the market. Not something artists usually think of first. So it's the opposite of how products are usually made. As an artist, you may or may not want to embrace this process. This is your creative engine. So when you start with innovation and then you move it through simplification and distilling your ideas down, and then you bring it into the world, then you create a way to maintain it and restore order and create a flow so it can go out into where your collectors or your purchasers are. It's interesting to think about the way that you work. Maybe you don't work this way. Maybe you start with the mind, and maybe you have to have your ideas all in place before you move into the area of risk. Here's a little case study. I'm high on the fact finder scale, moderately high. I'm not at the very top, but the one thing I do is I love to research, and I can go down rabbit holes. And then I love to maintain lists and adjust my life around lists, but I'm kind of a bridge in terms of this. Both of these first 2, air and water, I'm a maintainer. I'm in the middle. I like to research things and then explain it to other people, like I'm doing with this project. And I like to tick off a list to make sure that I'm just maintaining my schedule as it should be in my life every day. But It's okay if things shift and change. I adjust as I go. My fire number shows that I love to innovate and dive in. My earth number shows that I love to envision things rather than actually build them. And this can be a problem. It's a good recipe for procrastination. So sometimes I envision things, but then I don't actually put it into the real world. I have way more ideas, and many I don't finish. This might sound familiar. Many artists are similar. They want just enough information to get the basic idea. And then on the fact finder end, they like to distill it down so they can find connections and explain things to others and move forward. Many artists don't like to create new systems. They like to just work with what is there. So creating financial processes or marketing plans or spreadsheets, things like that, can be excruciating. On the other hand, 90% of artists that I talk to and that I researched love to dive into projects. And as artists, we kind of think everyone is like this, but they're not. A lot of people first like to take low risk and not take those chances. So we should embrace this about ourselves. Most artists are on the envisioning end of the real world. A implementer, a fine craftsman needs all on the other end, needs all the perfect tools first, but most artists can conjure out of thin air. And like I said, this is a recipe for brilliance, but also avoidance. When you make something real, why make it real if it already exists in your mind? So we can procrastinate or put things off because we feel so comfortable with this vision in our mind. So here is the idea of how to find your best process. I'm high and quick start. So I dive in and then I research things. Then I find a system and then I bring it into the world. I would suggest doing this. Rearrange your numbers from highest to lowest and see how that works for you. And then you can rearrange it. Create a list of words for each number. Under innovation, I think about diving in, improvising, and the fact that I'm not afraid to fail. Those are good things. Under fact finder, I like to distill things down. I like to paraphrase things and be a bridge to people who are encountering what I make. Under follow through, I like lists. I like to adjust as I go. And I'm a bridge between the two ends. And then in implementer, I am an envisioner. I like to conjure out of thin air, capture the essence of something, and move on. So this is how I rearranged it to find my best process. First, I innovate. I dive in and experiment. Then I try to capture the essence of something so I don't lose it. So that's where a good drawing practice or a quick sketching process really comes in handy. I use my journal every day in my creative process to capture these ideas. Then I spend more time, set timers, and think about distilling these down and then checking off steps in the process to actually complete something. There's no wrong or right way, but you may have a completely different process than I do. This is your creative engine. Think about what gets you going, what helps you move to the next stage, and how to create a process that will help you actually finish things. I hope this helps you understand your creative process a little bit better. Thank you so much.